Why do women have sex? Well, you might assume the obvious if you're thinking in evolutionary terms, that people have sex to reproduce. But in fact, most of the sex humans engage in is not consciously for reproductive goals. Listen closely, gentlemen. Women have a host of psychological reasons to be turned on by you. I'm Dr. Wendy Walsh with producer Brooke Peterson on this episode of Mating Matters, 12 Reasons Women Have Sex. The idea for this podcast comes from one of my favorite books, written by two of my favorite researchers. The book is aptly called Why Women Have Sex, and its authors are evolutionary psychologist Dr. David Buss and Dr. Cindy Meston, who directs the Sexual Psychophysiology Lab, a cutting-edge lab on women's sexual experience. Both are at the University of Texas at Austin. In this episode, we use sound bites from them at separate Idea City Talks back in 2010. You can find both talks on YouTube. Click our links in the show notes. Let's begin with a couple not-so-popular facts. Most men want more sex than most women. This has been proven over and over in many studies. Also, despite the advances in birth control and STD prevention, sex is still a higher risk hobby for women than men. Because of women's unique biology, we're more likely to contract a sexually transmitted infection, are more likely to become emotionally attached through sex, even to someone we're not that into, and still more likely to walk away with a pending case of parenthood. So, there are many protective reasons why women don't want to have sex. And all of this is understandable, right, guys? But it's not all bad news. I mean, one thing is clear. It seems everyone can agree that women's sexuality is just more complex than men's. Here's evolutionary psychologist Dr. David Buss.
The more we studied women's sexuality, the more complicated it got. Of course, Freud and others, men have been asking the question for centuries, what do women want? And I think part of the answer for why we haven't been able to answer that question is because it's very complicated. In fact, more complicated, as I hope you'll see, than male sexuality.
Researcher Dr. Cindy Meston says one factor to consider in the different sexual needs of men and women is just the basic differences in our physiology. She says after over 20 years of studying sexuality in her lab, she has a theory why men's genitals seem to be more in sync with their minds and their behavior. She says mainly there are three things. One, men can't ignore an erect penis. It's literally out there. Two, there's more tissue in a penis than a vagina, so it fills with more blood, sending a stronger sense of arousal. And finally, three, because men touch their penis several times a day just to urinate, they're more comfortable attending to their genital messages.
Women, on the other hand, when they have increased blood flow into the genitals, and we've done this many, many times in my laboratory, you can increase the blood flow into women's genitals with Viagra or intense exercise, just like you can in men. But the difference is, oftentimes women don't notice that there's more blood in their genitals, or if they do notice it, it doesn't impact their psychological arousal. Because the signal is weaker and easier to ignore, and they're not used to attending to genital cues, they're more influenced by environmental cues, by what's going on. Did the husband remember to bring the dry cleaning home? Has the dog been fed? Has the laundry been folded? And because there's about 100,000 possible things that can be on their minds and distracting them, it necessarily makes becoming aroused and staying aroused more complicated for women.
But there are almost just as many reasons why women do eventually have sex. In researching their 2009 book, Buss and Meston simply asked a large group of men and women to list all the reasons they had ever had sex. Then they boiled down all the overlapping answers into 237 distinct reasons. The motives ranged from the positive, attraction, love, and physical pleasure, like an orgasm, to the dark, revenge against a partner who cheated. Okay, I admit it. I've actually had a kind of revenge sex. You're going to hear my story later in this podcast. Stay tuned. The researchers were surprised by a couple of things. Dr. Meston says they found that an old cliche about men and women is actually wrong.
Often you hear it said that men have sex for pleasure and women have sex for love. We found just as many men as women had sex because they said they wanted to feel connected to their partners. And just as many women as men had sex for the pure physical gratification.
According to co-author Dr. David Buss, some reasons women have sex range from angelic to demonic.
To give you a little bit of a feel for some of the answers that we got. Altruistic, I wanted to boost my partner's self-esteem. So they're not saying, I want to have sex to reproduce. They're hoping to boost their partner's self-esteem. Evil, this is the one that disturbed me. I wanted to give someone else a sexually transmitted disease. Hopefully, no one in this room will encounter anyone with that sexual motivation. Some were very mundane. Why do you have sex? Because it feels good. Or some said, because I was bored, there was nothing else to do. Some had sex for spiritual reasons, to get closer to God.
You get the picture. Women are indeed complicated. Our sexuality is often less about seed fertilization and more about maintaining social structures or shaping the behavior of others, because sex to simply satisfy a sex drive is less common for women.
I feel like I sometimes find myself thinking, like, looking for reasons to have sex. I have a boyfriend, been together for over a year now, and super attracted to each other, love each other so much, have regular sex. However, I sometimes find myself like not in the mood or just like not feel like I'm tired. I just took a shower. Like I don't want to shower again, you know? And then I feel bad. It's a whole cycle.
For the purpose of this podcast, we boiled the research down even more. I mean, this podcast would be like 10 hours long if we explained all 237 reasons why women have sex. You can read the book for that. Instead, we decided to tell you about 12 common reasons women have sex. Some you might say, duh, and others might surprise you. So here we go. In no particular order, 12 reasons women have sex. Reason number 1. It might not astound people to learn that our reason number 1 is one of the most common reasons women have sex. Pure curiosity. Whether it's to gain sexual experience, try out a different kind of partner, or have some variety after a long stretch of monogamy, many women report that they sometimes have sex because they're simply curious.
I just graduated college. I was single, moved to LA, did the whole dating app world, and like, quote unquote, had my slutty year then. My like slutty phase. I didn't really do that in college. And then I just like went on a bunch of dates, slept with a bunch of guys, like was doing my like frisky time.
Because you were curious?
Because I was curious and I felt like I just wanted to. I was ready. Like I had always, and still do, like take sex very seriously, think it's important and think it's like should be a beautiful connection between two people. But then sometimes I was like, I want to sleep with this random guy and never see him again.
I was just about to go into college. I was in the tail end of high school. And I had a lot of friends that had already lost their virginity. And I remember my mind frame at the time, it was almost obsessive. Like I would just look around at the world and wonder who around me had had sex, if they were currently having sex, how many times they had had sex. And I just felt like I was ready, and I really wanted to know what all of this sex stuff was about.
Further down the sexual road, women might experiment sexually not only because they are curious about what sex feels like, but because they're curious about discovering their own sexual self. Leslie Morgan is an author and women's advocate whose memoir, The Naked Truth, tells the story of dating 5 men at the same time at the age of 50. She was a guest on my Los Angeles radio show.
I found myself divorced at 49 after a long, unhappy marriage. And I was feeling unattractive and desexualized and just not valued after years of being miserable. And I just have to say, for the record, I made my ex-husband miserable too. We both were very unhappy together. Mm-hmm. And I realized that I'd lost not only my marriage, but I'd also lost myself. And I knew somehow inside me that I couldn't find myself on a diet of self-help and yoga. So I came up with this crazy idea.
But we try. Don't we women try?
It's true. And I tried too. But I knew I loved men, even though I hadn't liked being married. So I came up with this idea that I knew I needed men and a lot of them. And I decided to have 5 boyfriends for a year and see where it took me.
And where it took her was on an odyssey to define herself sexually.
I changed my mindset. After being a fairly traditional woman for my whole life, I decided that I was going to approach men like a buffet and take what I wanted without worrying at all about how to please a man or be valuable to him or to follow society's rules about women and relationships.
And according to Morgan, sex became a way to emotionally heal.
I needed men to heal me just as men had destroyed me. They can be healers and destroyers. And I needed to feel beautiful and sexual and feminine and valued again. And I knew I needed more than one man to do that, and I didn't want anything serious.
In the end, she says she didn't find her Prince charming, but says that's one of the biggest lessons for her, busting the myth that the only happy ending for a woman is to be saved by a man.
So my happy ending is that I'm joyously single, living my life. I have a small coterie of wonderful men in my life, and I'm collecting material for the sequel to The Naked Truth.
Reason number 2. Speaking of healing, many of the women in Dr. Buss and Dr. Meston's research reported that they sometimes use sex as a pain reliever. Yep, there's been data to show that the happy hormones released during sex can treat anything from arthritis pain, migraine headaches, to menstrual cramps.
Sometimes you have a headache, and it's actually ironic because you keep hearing this story of people use headaches to avoid sex when really you know that it can help healing headaches and other sorts of pain. So it has helped. I recommend it. Don't use the headache as an excuse. Use it to get sex.
Hear that, gentlemen? Next time she says, "Not tonight, darling, I have a headache," point to our reason number 2. Sex increases serotonin, a natural antidepressant, and that yummy chemical contained in chocolate, phenylethylamine, that stimulates the brain's pleasure center. Oh, and don't forget morphine-like endorphins, our body's natural painkillers. They're all released during sex. Who knew? Reason number 3. Obligation sex. Sometimes duty calls. Women know that most of you men want sex more often than most of us women. And so we realize that sometimes it's our duty.
Sometimes I just feel like, I'm like, okay, I should have sex with him tonight because I didn't last night and I know he wants it, and okay, I'll just do it.
Sometimes you feel like you want them that, especially in a long-term relationship after a while. Sometimes I didn't quite feel like it, but I kind of felt like I owed him. He had been waiting for this for some time.
Reason number 4 is much brighter. Since sex helps women feel emotionally closer to their partner, most women think it works in reverse too. And sometimes it does. Men report that they have better sex when they're in love. But sometimes it doesn't. If a dude isn't so into her, he might still have sex, but not feel any closer afterwards.
Wait, Wendy.
Yeah?
Don't men have oxytocin? Why don't they feel the bonding?
They also emit oxytocin during sex. But if you remember our episode called The Trouble with Testosterone, they have such a spike in testosterone during sex that it blunts the effect of the oxytocin.
I totally forgot.
I've definitely had sex with a man to get him to invest emotionally more in the relationship because, I felt like we weren't connecting. We weren't just there. So I felt maybe if I, open up my body and all that, then maybe he'll respond and feel more safe with me to where, we have a bond, we have a connection.
Being with a man for a long time, I kind of felt like after a while we didn't have a lot to say to each other. And I felt like after sex, I felt we were closer to each other, and it kind of created this environment where everything was more intimate and we could share things more often.
Well, I think it makes you feel closer to the person that you're sleeping with, that you're traveling with, that you're experiencing life with. It's just one more part of growing in a relationship with someone. And, I married a little bit older, so we don't have children. So you have to find a way to keep that closeness in a relationship. And that's what it's for.
Reason number 5, investment sex. This is when women in committed relationships have sex as a kind of currency, their investment in the couple. It's often done not because they feel it's their duty or because they owe him. It's because they want to get him to do something, like chores, childcare, financial expenditures. According to the authors of Why Women Have Sex, investment sex is basically, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine.
One woman in our study who had a much lower sex drive than her husband said she agreed to have sex with him on a weekly basis as long as he agreed to mow the lawn and take the garbage out on a weekly basis. Equally aversive tasks in her eyes.
This is one from our study. My boyfriend bought me a car a few years back. I wasn't in the mood for sex, but he was, so we had sex whenever he asked, at least for a couple of weeks.
Reasons number 6 and number 7, short-term sex versus long-term sex. Many women unconsciously fall for the tall, deep-voiced, big-muscled man because it tweaks ancient desires for good genes for offspring. They don't necessarily want to have a long-term relationship with him. And even if he has a girlfriend, these guys ring the dinner bell for a wide range of women.
He was about 6'3", tall, dark, hairy, which is generally my type, very manly, very alpha. I wasn't the reason he cheated on his girlfriend because he did it before me. I'm sure he's done it several times after. So I used that to justify what I wanted, which was sex, and that was it. It just happened the one time, but I would have never wanted it to be more because I was only attracted to him sexually and not in any other capacity.
Then there's long-term sex. Women have been known to exchange sex for care, commitment, and financial security to secure a partner for the long haul. This is how the shorter, balder, softer guys can win the mating game. Or, if necessary, women may try some slippery mate attraction sex. According to Dr. Buss, women may offer a little short-term sex bait and then switch to making a play for a long-term commitment.
They present themselves as a costless sexual opportunity and then convert it into a long-term mating.
We've all done it, ladies. Admit it.
We had our first date and I was like head over heels. I was like so obsessed with him. And at the beginning, he was sort of looking at me more as like, go on a couple dates, hook up, whatever. And I was just so into him. And so that's what I thought. Just like keep having sex with him. Like if he wants to booty call, he'll booty call and then he'll settle down eventually. And he settled down eventually. But I mean, I wanted to trap him in and was willing to have as much sex as he wanted in order to get him. And I got him.
Reason number 8, sex to reduce stress or to fall asleep. Women report that sex makes them feel relaxed and helps them fight worry and insomnia and get a good night's rest. There's science behind this too. Research consistently shows that wonderful cuddle hormone, oxytocin, which is released in huge amounts during sex, not only increases bonding, but also creates a sense of calm and well-being. It lowers blood pressure and the effects of the stress hormone cortisol.
If I'm feeling like, okay, I know I'm a ball of nerves right now, I do definitely push a little harder my agenda to have sex that night, simply for the stress relief, I really need a good night's sleep. More often than not, my sleeping pattern is that I wake up 3 or 4 times in the night, and I can generally, put myself right back to sleep with a quiet mind after I've had sex that night. But if I haven't, then I wake up almost like my brain never really stopped going.
Reason number 9 of why women have sex: mercy sex, sometimes known as a charity romp. Mercy sex can happen either because a woman feels that a man doesn't have a high mate status and probably has fewer opportunities for sex. She feels kind of sorry for him.
Yeah, there was this one guy that I went on a couple dates with, and this was during my dating app phase, and I wasn't into him at all. Just didn't care, but he was nice, and I felt bad, and I kept having sex with him, and really shouldn't have, because then I broke his little heart, even though we saw each other for 2 months. But I felt bad. I felt bad, so I let him come over, let him hang out. Shouldn't have.
Or a woman can sometimes have mercy sex because she feels sad for her man and wants to give him a treat to lift his spirits. Aren't we sweet?
That was something I did a lot. When he had a really bad day and he'd come back home, I'd try and propose to make dinner myself and then top off with sex. Yeah, just make him forget about his bad day, make him feel better. That was an important one.
Reason number 10. Sometimes women have sex out of revenge. She was hurt by an ex, so she feels a little tit for tat is in order to even the pain. It's meant to get someone back by making the evildoer jealous, angry, or just plain sorry.
In my mind at the time, it felt more, why should I care about you? You hurt me. So if you had not cheated on me, if you had broken up me in a respectful way, then maybe I wouldn't be doing this to you. But I'm doing this, and it's going to hurt you, and I'm choosing not to care.
And it doesn't seem to matter if the focus of the revenge ever even finds out. Take it from me. Earlier, I promised to tell you a story of my own revenge sex. Clearly, I have a high shame tolerance. This story was juvenile. It was stupid. It was a stupid girl move. I think I was 18 or 19 years old. But it kind of helped me feel better. I mean, sex is a drug after all. But it certainly didn't affect the woman I intended to get revenge on. This story, by the way, came out of me spontaneously when I was in the studio with producer Brooke and one of our interview subjects. Warning, you're about to hear some locker room girl talk. And yes, we swear too, guys. Get ready. I once had, this is how crazy the woman's brain is, because this doesn't make any logical sense at all, that I was young and I got fired from a job, and the woman boss, I hated her, and she fired me. And the very next night, I went out to a bar and I met this guy, and he said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I used to work at blah, blah, blah." And he goes, "Oh, my mom's the manager there." And I looked at him and said, "Want to get a hotel?" And the whole time I was fucking him, I was thinking, "I'm fucking your son, you bitch. Look what I'm doing."
Okay, that's amazing. And what are the odds that you would meet him?
What are the odds? Okay, moving on. Reason number 11. Mate guarding sex. That's sex designed to keep a man satisfied so he won't go looking anywhere else.
He seemed to me like a god amongst men, and I had no idea how I was lucky enough to come across him. And so I just really wanted to make sure that he was happy and that I could keep him and that no one else would get to him. So I was definitely all over him all the time, just to make sure that, yeah, he was happy enough and he didn't feel the need to go look for sex anywhere else.
I'd like him to feel like he has a closeness to me. I mean, this is Los Angeles, and every woman sees a married man and they think that's open field. And so women hit on my husband all the time. As we grow older, you know, I think men get better looking with time. So more women hit on my husband than you could. I mean, I could be standing there and they'd hit on him. So, I mean, I just like to feel the own intimacy in our marriage is what also keeps us bonded together.
So I remember one time I was with my man and I looked at his phone. He left and he went to the bathroom, and I looked at his phone. He left it open. And there were recent text messages from some women in there. And I'm like, who are these women? And I didn't click on anything. I didn't decide to scroll through and look. I just got instantly jealous. And then I felt like I should give him his privacy, but I was mad. So I ended up that night.
What happened that night?
We got a nice hotel room that night, and we, had a nice dinner out in the city. And then we, obviously I had to show him, I'm worthy. Don't text these other women anymore. And I think it worked.
Reason number 12, mate poaching sex. Yes, women sometimes use sex to steal a mate from another woman. Here's some interesting research. When women wear ostentatious jewelry or fashion or drive expensive cars, all purchased by their mate, other women are less likely to hit on that man. Maybe they feel he's too invested in his primary relationship. Maybe they feel the woman is too high status and there may be retribution. But if a man doesn't look too invested, he's fair game to lots of women. Strange. We couldn't find a single woman to talk about this one. Well, that's 12 of 237 reasons. But women also report that they have sex just because it feels good, for their own sexual satisfaction.
I think in most of my relationships, I have been the one with the stronger sex drive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've often been turned down or not satisfied. My sexual needs were too high. So I never really engaged in sex feeling like it was an obligation. I always felt like I loved it and I wanted more of it.
It's important to remember, though, that women's sexual arousal is intertwined deeply with their psychology. That's one reason why pharmaceutical companies haven't come up with a pill to increase female libido. Our orgasms are as much in our heads as in our genitals. And this can get a bit complicated. For us, too.
I can't get myself aroused and excited about a man if I'm not mentally or emotionally connected to him. And because I'm not emotionally connected to anyone right now, like I have not had sex in such a long time, which is really frustrating because I do have needs as a woman. And of course I want to have sex. I love it. But then I also, when I'm in those situations, like I'm not turned on at all.
It's no secret that women are complicated creatures, and the answer to why women have sex may not lie in biology. Doctors used to assume that the male sex hormone testosterone could beef up women's sexual desire, but recent research found no difference in sex drive between high testosterone women and low testosterone women. One thing's for sure, women's sexual desire rises and falls throughout their menstrual cycle. When women are ovulating, their sex drive is as high as a man. How can you tell when a woman is ovulating? Well, you'll have to listen to our Mating Matters episode, Hidden Eggs, for more on that. It's also important to note that dating sex is very different from long-term monogamous sex because most humans are wired to have a sexual response to variety. A study by Kristen Mark at Indiana University looked at 133 heterosexual couples and found that men and women were equally likely to be the partner with low sexual desire. Despite decades of research into what increases female sexual desire, scientists still don't have a biological answer. Female sexuality is as much about sociology and psychology, and women differ from each other. We have sex to express love, to seek revenge, to steal a mate, to find pleasure, to give a gift, to feel closer to our partner. Sex is much more than a basic drive for women. It's a strategic tool for enhancing the social order and increasing reproductive fitness.
And then one more sexual motivation. Some people actually do have sex to make babies. So why women have sex is an extremely complicated thing. There are many, many different reasons, many functions. And it depends on the woman's ovulation cycle. It depends on whether she's pursuing a short-term or long-term mating strategy. It depends on the man's personality, on his sense of humor, on the circumstances, the mood, how he smells, how symmetrical he is. It's very complex. I don't think that we've totally answered the question. Every week, every month, we find out something more about female sexuality, but I think we've made a little bit of progress since the days of Sigmund Freud.
Thanks for listening to Mating Matters. I'm Dr. Wendy Walsh. Mating Matters is produced in partnership with iHeartMedia. It is researched, interviewed, and written by me, Dr. Wendy Walsh, and it is edited and produced by Brooke Peterson. You know, people don't learn about podcasts usually by just searching around. They learn about a podcast because somebody who loved that podcast told them about it. So please subscribe, write a review, and more than anything, hit that share button now. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. Wendy Walsh.
Hi folks, this is Brooke. In this episode, we used little bits of two different talks given separately by Dr. Cindy Meston and Dr. David Buss back in 2010. You can find them on YouTube or take a look at our episode notes. You'll find links to both of them, as well as to their book, Why Women Have Sex. Take a look and click.
If you'd like to call the Mating Matters message line, you certainly can. The number is 323-207-8277. If you got a question, we want to hear it. Or maybe you have a comment. Either way, we love to hear from you, our listener.
So by now you might be thinking, what about love? This young woman wrote, for my 20th birthday, my boyfriend took me out to an amazing seafood restaurant and we had a really incredible time. He treated me like a princess. I felt so loved and I was so in love, and all the feelings from the romantic atmosphere of the restaurant carried over to his grungy apartment and we made love on his bed. It was the best sex we've ever had. So yes, still, there are times when love can conquer all, in this case, the sight of a dirty dorm room. And love, indeed, was one of the 16 major categories of sexual motivation we found for women. But you might want to keep in mind that when women say they're having sex for love, it's not just because they're in love, but it's often because they're trying to get love, steal love, protect love, or get over love.